Good evening, everyone, and welcome and thank you. After yesterday's cold, I had to dig up my skidoo suit again, and today we're back to normal. So thanks for coming out. I was informed that Councillor Dean Wenborn will be joining us. He's just running a little late, so Dean will be joining us. Welcome to Fred, Ted, and Aaron from Aqua. Welcome to Noelville again. I was ready to bring you out to the chip stand and treat you guys, but it's going to be hard with you guys on camera only now. So
one of these times.
One of these times, good.
Yeah.
So welcome.
It's good food, actually. I think I stopped there a couple of weeks ago with one of the operators when we were through town at the lagoon there.
Yes, we're very lucky. It's too bad that we haven't got them for 12 months. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I need any additions to the agenda, Kevin or Michelle? No, as is. I need a mover and a seconder to accept the agenda. I have Tim and I have Brad. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Any disclosures from anyone? No? Okay, thank you. Our last meeting, the minutes of our last meeting. Any questions, comments, submissions, additions? If not, I need a mover and a seconder. I have Caitlin and I have Dave. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Number 4, Noelville Lagoon Sludge Survey results. And I am gonna pass the torch here. I don't know who is going to start. Aaron, okay, Ted is?
No, Aaron will be presenting this, and I'll let him take it away. Thank you very much for having us and presenting this report. Aaron, it's all
okay.
yours.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Some slides prepared. Okay, hope everybody can see that all right. And we're not hiding things. Let me just hide this a little bit. So yes, thank you very much for this opportunity to present the results of the Lagoon Sludge Survey. As last time I was here, I presented some general information about sludge cleanouts and talked a little bit about, bioaugmentation, adding microorganisms to the lagoons to digest the sludge while it sits in there. And so this is a results of a sludge survey that was done in the spring, and then I'm going to bring forward some of the result. I'll bring forward the results and then some recommendations, what to do with it. So just presented this before, nothing's changed here, but just some background about the lagoon. It's 2 cells, built in 1977. Rated capacity is about 500 cubic meters per day. It's about 1.5 meters deep. 10 acres and has a volume of 143,000 cubic meters. There's really, from what we know, is that there hasn't been any major lagoon cleaning. And in 2017, there was a sludge survey done that measured approximately 18,000 cubic meters of sludge. And so this survey is done 6 years subsequent to that approximately. And then it'll show what has changed since then. So the sludge survey was completed on April 28th, and I think that was approximately at the same time the last meeting was. And what they measured 9,000 cubic meters of sludge in the north cell and about 8,000 cubic meters in the south cell. And that equals about 17,500 cubic meters total of sludge. And then in 2017, for comparison, 12,000 cubic meters of sludge was measured in the north cell, and about 6,000 cubic meters was measured in the south cell. And that comes out to about 18,000 cubic meters. So I think one of the first things that, I noticed, and that maybe you noticed, is that, well, these amounts are different. They don't seem to be consistent, because in the north cell, it had 12,000 in 2017, and now it was measured using 9,000. And then the south cell, it has more. You would expect some more sludge to accumulate over the 6-year period. So it goes from about 6,000 up to about 8,000. And so that, maybe it makes sense. That's maybe a lot of sludge, but I think one of the things really to keep in mind with these surveys, it was a sonar survey. So it was a remotely operated vessel, or in that would send a sonar down, and it would measure the sludge layers. And things that can be attribute the difference is that even though the method, they're both sonar surveys, they were done by different service providers, and each service provider has a slightly different method that can lead to different results. As well as things like, talk about it a little bit later, but there's cattail growth along the banks of the lagoon. And, maybe, there are differences in the total area that could be measured by the different service providers. And so I think the take-home message here is that there hasn't been a huge change in the amount of sludge. The totals are still about the same. And so there's sludge is not overflowing, is building up to an excessive amount, because if you remember, the total volume of the cells as designed is about 135,000 cubic meters. So when you take that as a percentage in the north cell, based on the most recent survey, that's about 14% of the total volume capacity of the lagoon is sludge, and about 11% in the south lagoon of the total lagoon volume. So the sludge thickness, and so there's a figure here on the right-hand side showing the thickness. It's oriented in a strange way, as that looks like east is the north cell, but it just oriented like this just for ease of display. But the north cell is on the right, south cell is on the left. The sludge levels are fairly modest. The average thickness measured was 0.17 meters, so about 6 inches. But it's important to note that there is some localized buildup, and that localized buildup is located, around where the dumps are for the septage. And so these areas, they're showing, up to, say, close to about 0.7 meters. So probably about 2 feet of sludge in this area. And as I mentioned about the vegetation, I said cattails, but there's the report noted that the vegetation, the shoreline vegetation is somewhat overgrown in areas, and there's up to 15 meters in the north cell. So that's going into the lagoon about 15 meters, and about 5 meters in the south cell. So that can be some issues, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. So just talking about sludge cleanout, the report noted that the hydraulic capacity of lagoons is about 120,000 cubic meters as surveyed, which compares to the 143,000 cubic meters per the ECA, which is really what we're talking about here, is the original design capacity of the lagoons. And so what that works out to is that the capacity of the lagoons are about 84% of that design. And so they're completely cleaned out of sludge, they'd have 100%, it's at 84%. And so I would say there's some buildup of sludge, but it's fairly modest. And also the report, it goes into some detail. It talks a little bit about, how much can be dredged from the lagoon. So the total amount of sludge of that 17,500 cubic meters of sludge, only about 4,000 meters are dredgeable, because the dredging equipment, it has to avoid the liner, so it can't rip right through, and it can't go right up to the edge of the berm. That may depend on the specific type of equipment used for the sludge removal. So it's subject to confirmation by a sludge removal contractor. And so the second point I didn't mention here is that, so what their report said is that only about 24% of the sludge can be removed by dredging. And like I said, that should be confirmed with the contractor. This last major point here on this slide is about the organic fraction of the sludge. And that is that it's pretty low compared to other data that I've seen. In the north cell, it's 32%, and in the south cell, it's 10%. So that's quite low. And so what this means is that what I had talked about before is bioaugmentation, adding microorganisms to digest the sludge in the lagoon, would really have limited effectiveness because of that organic fraction is that we wouldn't expect bioaugmentation to remove all of the organic fraction because some of it will be hard to digest by the microorganisms. And so, you would still have, you'd still have sludge in there. It would have limited applicability. The other point is that the sludge, this is subject to confirmation by a sludge removal contractor, but the suitability for the sludge for land application, it could be limited because of that organic fraction is low, the nutrient levels might be low. So it could be that some of it may need to be landfilled. So that would greatly increase the cost of removing the sludge. So I put three sludge management options here. So full clean out of the lagoons certainly can be done. A quote was received in 2022 for $429,000, and then I'll just clarify that was for the assumption of land applying the sludge. There could be a partial removal of sludge, focusing on the areas where there is sludge buildup. So, for example, those red areas in the diagram that I showed previously. And then, of course, you could take advantage of the low sludge levels in other parts of the lagoon, and you can redistribute the sludge that's in those built-up areas. And then the last part here that's not necessarily related to sludge is that you can consider removing vegetation from the edges of the lagoon. So I believe this is the last slide here. So overall, I will say that the sludge amounts are not impeding the overall capacity of those two lagoons. But however, that localized sludge buildup, it could lead to some issues. Like, for example, it could lead to odors if the water level is drawn down below that level and that sludge is left exposed to the air, that can create some odor issues. And so really the recommendation that's on this slide here is a maintenance approach. So that maintenance approach would be removing the sludge in the built up areas. And I say removal because it's preferred over redistribution because the sludge will eventually need to be removed. And in order to redistribute the sludge, there likely need to be some level of getting into the lagoons to move the sludge around. And if you have to mobilize equipment to do that, it's the extra cost of taking that away. It would probably be worth it. The second is removing the vegetation from the edge of the lagoons. And this is important because vegetation, it can take up some capacity of the lagoons, but it also can provide habitat for animals that can burrow into the berms, and it can compromise the berm integrity. So we want to make sure those berms are clear and and so they can be inspected for their integrity. The last one here is that when there's a removal of sludge, it should be based on the sludge mass. So rather than the volume, to ensure the contractor is removing sludge solids, not water. So I think I need to explain that one a little bit better because the sludge is going to be a mixture of water and solids. And so if it's like 10% solids, So you want to pay for that 10% of the solids rather than the entire 100%. So you want to have it's called the bone dry tons removal, rather than say the volume, just basing it on the volume of the sludge, because if it's the volume of the sludge, you may be paying to get a lot of water removed. And so the cost, we do have that one cost that we can get a ballpark for removing the sludge from the entire lagoon. But really the costs are depending on, vendor quotes for doing this work. So that's it. That's what I have for that. And I'm happy to answer any questions and take any comments that anybody has.
Yes, thank you for this information. Questions from anyone?
How exactly do you remove the sludge?
That can be done by like one method that's done is it's like a dredge. It's like a machine that goes into the lagoon, and it kind of pumps the sludge from the bottom of the lagoon, for lack of a better word, and then it takes it and puts it into a truck, and then that truck hauls it away. There's a little bit of variations on that, is that it could be put into bags, so that like porous bags, so that are placed on the sides of the lagoon, so that you can put the sludge in there, the wet sludge in there, put it in the bags, the porous bags, and then over time, the water will go out of the that sludge, and so you have a more concentrated thing to haul away, because a lot of the cost of this is going to be getting a truck to haul this stuff away, because 5,000 cubic, or say 35, like a big tanker truck is about 30 cubic meters, 35 cubic meters of sludge. And so just multiply or take the total amount of sludge that's removed and divide by that, it ends up being a lot of trucks. So that reduces it. And then there's some contractors that have mechanical, it's called dewatering of the sludge, that can be done on site too. And then, of course, there's other ways of doing it. Is you can completely dewater the lagoon and go in with equipment, heavy equipment, to clean it out too. So there's various ways of doing it.
And I
Yeah.
think, Aaron, just due to that localized sludge, you did mention obviously in the presentation about the possibility of odors, right? Because if your lagoons get so low,
Yeah.
that sludge can be sitting out. And actually, that's what we're having now. I think that north cell is more localized, because the dumping is done. A majority of it is that cell is filling in the summer, so that's when they're dumping, I believe, is the most. So then the winter cell, which is the south cell, doesn't get as much septic as that north one does. And I think that you're right, the cattails are a major issue, and I think that they should be dealt with. I know they did pull some of them, might have been about 3 or 4 years ago, but they just seem to come back just as bad. Yeah. But I think because it's localized, and at this point right now, even that north cell ramp is almost destroyed, just because of the septic dumping, because that lagoon was released, and now we're starting to fill it again. And the freeboard is so high, they just dump at the top of the ramp, and it's creating crevices in those ramps. Especially, like I said, the north cell, because I think that's the most. So I think limiting the dumping of septic is the first step for sure, and then whether it's maintenance or whichever route they decide they want to go from here.
Okay, thank you. I have a question from Brad here.
Thanks. Couple of questions. When you remove the sludge, where does it get relocated to? I guess that's question number one. And then question number two, I noticed that there's really only one distribution point for each one of the cells. Is there a possibility of sort of redesigning, not necessarily physically, but redesigning the distribution points on both of the sludge ponds, whereby sludge can be put into different points over time, like maybe 1 year it's to the northeast corner, a year later it's to the northwest corner, kind of a thing. That way you can perhaps redistribute the sludge as it goes in. Is that a possibility as well?
Yeah, I can answer I'll answer the first question first. Is what the ideal situation is if the sludge is placed on agricultural fields and for its organic content and its nutrient value. So as long as it has meets the beneficial use criteria by the non-agricultural source material regulations, it can be land applied. And so it's not it wouldn't be so as long as it meets those, and there's a farmer that is okay with putting it on the land that meets their own criteria that have for it, it can be put on agricultural land. The other option for it would be going to a landfill, which tends to be more expensive unless there's a landfill available that will take it at a very low cost. But especially if it's liquid, is that it would be very difficult to put it would have to be dewatered then. And so that would add to the cost too. Like what I mentioned, whether it's those bags that I mentioned, or it's the mechanical water removal process.
Sorry, Aaron, sorry about that. The geotubes, we use multiple of those, a couple in Espanola and some in Sudbury. We haven't found land application for those. Typically they go to the landfill.
Yeah, okay.
But the dewatering bags or the geotubes, they do work really well. And you're right, it would obviously cut that cost down in regards to hauling, right? Because if it's completely dewatered, it's essentially, it looks like a soil, right? It's just to haul that and pay for that to get it to the landfill.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for, that was question number one. Now question number two.
Yeah. I think one of the things for question number two, because I know there had been previous discussions about the sludge septage, dumping. One of the, in my mind, I don't know that you could well, I guess you could, in those lagoons, redesign where the ramps are to do it. But I think I think a better option, if you were going to, spend for that, it would be better to probably put in a septage receiving station, probably at the lift station. So you can monitor what goes in, you have, a little better control of what goes in. And that way it gets put in via the lift station, which then would probably eliminate a lot of that buildup, I would imagine, over time. Because if I'm correct, there's no problem at the input from the lift station. Am I correct?
No, it is minimal around that inlet pipe.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's typical to get some sludge buildup around there.
Some around
That's
there, yeah.
common, but it's not it's
Not
not
as
as significant as the
significant, yeah.
Yep.
So that would be an option that I would I think it's been talked about before as a possibility. But as I say, that would be my thought about that.
Yeah.
And to get those to create something to get those trucks to each corner of those lagoons, then you would have to have some sort of ramp, culvert, something for them to be able to dump to, because and I still think that it should be implemented now. If they're going to continue to dump there, something has to be implemented to where they're not creating craters at the ramp area, because if you're going to go around the lagoon and do that, then it's potential issues with the berms, right? We have issues getting the boat in there as it is because of the potholes or holes, because they just open their hatch and release, right? If they went off to the side, either side of that ramp, or like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but is there not a septic receiving station at Public Works?
Yes, I know there is. I'll let Kevin answer this, and I believe he has a comment.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So future plans, we weren't ready to talk about this, yes, but we are actually pricing out to run hydro to the lagoons for a gate and a lift station. That way trucks are no longer going to there and we can monitor in a better fashion. And the lift station was put in Noelville at the cemetery to originally do this, but it hasn't been used for that in a while. We're gonna look at doing it at the lagoon site, but again, this has not been brought to council for budgetary purposes yet, so it's just a future plan. We will speak with Aqua for pricing and come back to you.
Yeah, and with hydro, then you can meter that, right? And either charge accordingly or at least know what's going into those lagoons on top of, your regular input from the collection system.
Okay, thank you. I have Dave, then Joan.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just on the last question too, that's not what I was gonna say, but didn't we used to have the truck dump in the lift station at the cemetery and it was causing pump problems? Isn't that why that changed? Kevin, maybe?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it was causing issues. I believe, Fred, you'd be able to speak to that, the lift station there.
Yeah, I don't know if I was around for that, but I can definitely see the potential for issues just because we don't know what's in those septic trucks and it's hard to tell what it is. So for sure, rags, whatever else is in the septic trucks. If it's not controlled via bar screen or anything like that, then yeah, it definitely can pose a problem.
Because those trucks will pump like rocks or.
Yep.
Yeah, so,
Yep.
Mhm.
okay. My original question was, is there not a way to maybe, I don't know if a pump or something mechanical to stir the lagoons to keep the sludge like at a level, mostly level across the whole lagoon?
Aeration, maybe.
Aeration, yeah. Is that feasible? Is that
Well,
having mountains?
Would
and
aeration
keep
move
it-
the sludge though?
yeah. Then you'd probably have to shut it off prior to release while it's sitting, right? So that your effluent numbers are within your limits to release.
Yeah.
But if you go aeration, then you need hydro.
Blowers,
Yeah,
all the
Uh,
piping. Mhm.
yep.
But that would also help for the like the decomposing of it too, the irrigation, moving it around.
Yes, I think it would help, but I don't know to what extent.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you have any more input on it, Aaron, but I don't
Yeah.
know to what extent it would.
It seems that the lagoons are operating well, like they are right now, like they're a facultative lagoon. And so it's like there's a layer of water has air, and then a layer of it has oxygen in it, sorry, and then a layer doesn't have oxygen in it. And that it's a pretty tried and true method. And adding aeration adds quite a bit of infrastructure. It's an ongoing cost that you're paying the hydro for that, and it's not insignificant, the cost of it. And you have to remember that this sludge buildup that we're looking at is since 1977. And I think someone mentioned before that there was some cleaning out did happen once at close to the septic dump areas, but
I think it was at the cattails, yeah.
okay, the cattails, yeah. So it's really, like I mentioned, it's like 84% of you have 80% of the capacity since 1977. So it's pretty good. And also that the current flows are, around, I think, Fred, it's about half of what the capacity is.
Yeah.
And I think the projections for the future, it's only like a modest increase. And so I think they'll function the way they are pretty well. And if just it's just maintenance is really what the recommendation here is. It's just hasn't really been done before. If it's done, I think the lagoons should serve the community pretty well into the future with just maintenance.
I agree, and I think maintenance would probably be the best. And I mean, I think that if we can limit the amount of septic being
Hmm,
dumped, and if we
mhm.
could find an alternative to the way the way that lagoon is accepting that septic. I mean, I know you can't stop it completely, but I think that if it's monitored, you know how much is being added to it, because that's just an estimate, those numbers that we're adding on top of the daily flows, right? We don't know those numbers for certain, and we can control where they're dumping, so that we're not running into these issues in another 10 or 15 years. I don't know. I think that if there was a receiving station, that would make a difference, whether it's bar screens prior to going down and being pumped into the lagoon. But I agree with Aaron. I think that that maintenance will go a long way, especially with the cattails and especially around that north cell dumping area. That's where I was surprised. I expected the numbers to be higher than what they were.
Yeah.
So that's a bonus, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that if that maintenance is done, then I think that it'll go a long way.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Joan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I was just wondering, so who does supervise the sludge removal? Is it you guys or, is it the municipality? And also I'm wondering, pardon my ignorance here, but when a contractor comes to dump right now, then we don't know whether that's from our municipality or whether it's from somewhere else, or do we depend on their honesty or I mean, do we charge another municipality if it comes from another municipality or what?
Okay, Kevin, I'll throw it back to you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, to answer your question, we have changed the rules and they do come into effect. Council passed an agreement that any contractor bringing septage into our lagoons, it now has to be within our municipality. And they are not allowed, like a contractor has to report to the MOE where their stuff is coming from, so they can't falter that. So at least now going forward, as of July 1st, there will be no more septage coming in from outside our municipality. I believe 60-something% of that was being dumped was from outside. So this will limit a lot of that.
60 or 16?
60.
Yeah, that number doesn't surprise me, Kevin, because I know when I was there a couple of weeks ago, I think there was probably 4 trucks that had come in to the lagoon within the hour that we were there. I mean, I'm not sure why. So, they're collecting septic from outside of your municipality. I'm not sure why whichever municipality they're going to, whether they're all field beds or if any of them have lagoons. I think that other municipalities may have put the same bylaw in as well, is that they're only going to accept what is in their municipality, which I think is only fair, because hence why we're here now. We gotta figure out what we can do to either mitigate it or get the lagoons back to where they should be.
Okay, does that answer your question,
And
Joan?
who supervises the dredging or the removal of the sludge?
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe when we go to RFP, I believe that would all be discussed then once Aqua would present the numbers and different contractors and prices, that would all be included in that package.
Yep.
Okay, Tim?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I've heard some numbers. I think 84% available. Is that a fair statement to be made? Okay,
Yes.
and now I was hearing from Kevin that our demand on that system has dropped by 60% because we're not bringing in outside septic. And so I'm just wondering what the immediacy is of this. If we have 80% of available space and we've dropped the load on the system by 60%, I'm wondering about, sorry? 60% less from other municipalities. So that's the way I heard it.
So 40% of what was in a year ago or 2 years ago would be what would be applied year on year going forward. So am I missing something? And please
From
remind me, like,
From septic hauling, 40%.
So there would still be the raw wastewater coming in will not have changed. And in terms of volumes, that's much higher than the volumes of septic. But I think what the local, like whether or not to do any maintenance is that those are 2 points that were mentioned. Is one is like for removal of the vegetation, it's a best practice to have the berms clear to prevent burrowing animals, because you want to make sure those berms are in a very good integrity. And if there are too many burrowing animals, it can affect the structural integrity of them and cause some, or perhaps cause some collapsing of them. And then the other part is that, like Fred mentioned, is that when the lagoon levels get lower, especially as the north cell, you said, right, Fred, that
Correct.
is that when that sludge gets exposed to the air, that's where you can get some odor issues. When it's covered with water, is the water creates a little bit of a barrier for the odors. So it's it's simple maintenance activities.
Yeah,
Okay,
what you're
does-
saying is the whole lagoon doesn't need to be dredged, just those specific areas by the intake. So it's not a full lagoon cleanout. That's not needed at this point.
And I think to answer his question in regards to the 60% less, so I don't know the numbers offhand yearly of septic haulage. Like, you know, if it was I don't know, 1,000 cubic meters a year, then you would take off 60%, right? So you'd be at 40,000 cubic meters of just septic, nothing to do with the regular collection or the regular flows going into that lagoon.
Okay, Tim, does that answer your?
what I was listening for, and I think I've heard it now, and I thank you for that. Listening between the difference between operational costs and potential planning for capital costs to operate that system. If maintenance cattails, I get it, makes sense. The distribution into the site, I get it, it makes sense. But one of the numbers I wrote down, maybe you can help me, was in the $400,000 range, and that would be full clean out. So recommendations I'm listening for are, as you've stated, maintenance makes sense to me, and I don't need to know what the dollar is. It costs what it costs. But is there an immediacy around making these changes? I'm kind of hearing that there is. Certainly, Fred, if you're pretty clear on the areas that we're entering septic into those sites, and that needs to be done. So I accept that, and I get it. So thank you for your comments.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Anything to add on your presentation? If not, thank you. I'm sure staff is going to look at this report and digest it and come back to council with a recommendation of some kind. So thank you very much. And you sure you don't want to drive down here for the chip stand?
Next time.
Yeah,
Next
I will.
time,
Definitely
okay.
next time.
I will be down for the next one. Absolutely.
I was by
Okay,
there actually on Sunday, but it was just too smoky to stand around and
yes, it was.
and wait.
So- So thank you very much for your presentation, and I'm sure they'll come back to us at council. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank
Have
you.
a good
Chair.
evening.
Right.
Have a
take
good
care.
evening.
All right,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Yeah.
For us to make a recommendation to council, like they gave us different options there. I'm just trying, yes, Dave, go ahead, Dave.
I would maybe look at maybe directing staff to look in cost and cleaning out the cattails in the areas where he's dumping. See if we can get a cost on cleaning that out to start.
Yes, Kevin?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So if the committee could, I believe what Akko was saying were the last two options was the cattails and the main sources of the problems of the ramps. So the other one just seems kind of high to go, and they said obviously it is not needed at this time, but the other two seem to be not needed to be done. So if this committee would like to recommend to council for us to now research or put out an RFP at least and speak with Aqua for further.
Okay, are we, Tim?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Kevin, with this, well, I'm gonna say the cattails and I have no concept of what it takes for Michelle to go down there and start cutting them, right? Is that not within your operating budgets potentially to do maintenance in that area? And I have no idea what your operating budgets are or your maintenance is, so.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, I guess nobody here has really been to the lagoons because it's fenced off, obviously, and actually Dave might have, but yeah, the cattails are quite significant. They look like little islands all over. There's lots of waterfowl there. It's creating quite the habitat on the edges. So it would be a significant, and we do not possess the equipment to do any of this. We don't even have an excavator, so.
Okay, do we have something written up? Go ahead.
The Environmental Advisory Committee recommends to council to take a maintenance approach to sludge and vegetation in the Noelville Lagoon based on Aqua's recommendation. That's right.
Sounds good. Willie, you have a question? Sorry, could you just swing the mic around?
My apologies. In that recommendation, we're gonna address the trucks dumping into the lagoon as well and try to make sure that they distribute their activities a little more, or is that going to be addressed at all?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Not at this point. It's with this new contract that any contractor will have to sign. This is going to cut back all the septage coming in to start with, so significantly. So there won't be as much dump there to begin with. And like I was saying, we're looking at right now pricing out hydro to go there, and then next steps we would have to talk about capital purchases for a lift station to be put in, but that would be a further conversation later for next year.
Okay,
Well, the motion, I understand, but is this the one where we're prohibiting any septage out of the municipality?
know what that motion council have already
Yeah, I
passed it,
thought so too.
that we're limiting only to our residents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Brad, you had a question?
Yeah, just a quick question, and I don't know if it's been answered before or not, but when other contractors, even local ones, come into the and dump their loads into the lagoons, are they supervised or not? Or is it done on the honor system?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So they have to provide a report where it comes from and how much. That is, they have to track all this with the Ministry of Environment. So all those records come to us and then we input it.
But starting July 1st, are we going to have a better control on that? Or can they just drive in by themselves?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah. So now they will have to check in and there'll be a some sort of daily log here now going forward.
Okay, thank you. So Joan,
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, can I just get you to just reread the motion?
The Environmental Advisory Committee recommends to council to take a maintenance approach to sludge and vegetation removal in the Noelville Lagoon based on Aqua's recommendations.
But sorry, just to clarify that we're kind of looking into the cost of it first or not? Or are we recommending that? or would
well,
that be
we're
done-
we're
would that be done
recommending that
automatic?
that
That
we
it's done no
we
matter
put
what.
out tenders and we'll take a look at the costs
Okay,
then,
understand.
seeing what it will cost. Dave, you're moving it and moved by Dave, you, seconded by Caitlin Knott. Those in favor? Carried, thank you. We're going to move into 4.2, the roundtable discussion, if you have anything to bring. And I'm just going to start off with Kevin. And I would like Kevin just to give me a quick report on last Wednesday, our first full day of recycling pickup for the whole municipality. I know there was some glitches, it was the first time out there, but we'll fix them. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I was kind of hoping to go through the table first so I could hear everyone's comments, but I guess I'm on the spot here. And yeah, as you were saying, there definitely was a couple glitches. The contractor did warn us of this, but we did have vehicles out the day of following the routes, picking up. So a lot of the roads didn't even know that there was a glitch. We were kind of on top of it, but anybody that had a problem, we did put out on social media to contact us, and we tried our best to get out the next day. And we had a couple of vehicles out the next day collecting everything. We have the sheds out on private roads or roads that couldn't be accessed by the truck because there's no turnarounds. So those were utilized. They seem to work out pretty good for people on the islands and private areas and roads that aren't able, the truck can't turn around on. So next week, I'm promised that a lot of these places that were missed won't be missed again, but it is a new program and we are trying to work out the kinks. It'll take a little bit, but hopefully it goes better next Wednesday.
Thank you, Kevin. Joan,
Just one question. Is Marty going to be allowed to speak behind me here or?
I have had no requests or
Okay. Oh. Yeah, okay, well, Marty did come to talk to me and, you know, when you say no turnaround, I'm just wondering about Pinewood Road. It seemed, is the turnaround at the end of Pinewood Road not big enough?
Through you, Mr. Chair, anywhere where the contractor drove our routes and they told us where they could go, and they will not go down any private road to start with, but anywhere where they couldn't access, they let us know, and then we tried to facilitate as best we can. Some places are having to bring their recycling bins, up to a main road or access a shed, but it's very few residents, but we're doing what we can to, facilitate everyone in this program.
I'm just wondering, are you familiar with Pinewood Road?
Yes, Pinewood and Greaves.
Because Pinewood does have a big turnaround. I mean, I'm just curious. And it is a public road.
Okay, so whatever our contractor. It's really up to what they told us where their truck can go, and that's.
Okay, sorry, I'm at a loss here. So we're not picking up on Pine Ridge Road, or?
No, I'm. Yeah, okay.
Not right now. I'll get there.
Okay, yeah, I was, Marty has talked about me. You put a shed on Pinewood Road. At the beginning of, at the junction of Greaves Road and Pinewood Road. And everyone on Pinewood Road, which is a public road, and there are quite a few people that are directly on that road. And they all have to bring their garbage to this shed. And I'm just kind of wondering, it does seem a little bit, so, I mean, you're saying that the contractor is saying that the turnaround is, so you just, does the contractor have to prove that they can't turn around there, or do you just accept their?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, we take the contractor's advice. We can obviously go back and take a second look at this, but as of right now, that's what is being offered in that area. That shed also facilitates several other island residents.
Fern Road and Graves Road. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Pine Ridge Road. We have Pine Ridge, well, actually
Pinewood,
mistakenly signed at home.
Pinewood.
Pinewood? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't get the Pinewood. There's a Pine Ridge Drive off Dry Pine Bay Road off White Pine Lane. So
Okay, anything else, Joan?
Okay, this is really off base perhaps, but I'm just wondering, and it may be more emergency preparedness, but I'm wondering, does the municipality have a vulnerable persons registry, or who takes care of that? In cases of, excess heat or whatever, or wildfire smoke like we've been experiencing, who checks on people?
Okay, Kevin?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that would be the emergency management group. This has nothing to do with our environmental committee here.
Okay, so that's another committee. Okay.
Just for info to, and I believe, Rugbigro is headed that. So,
Just wondering.
anything else, Joan?
No, I've taken up enough time.
No. We got all the time of in the world. Moose season opens October 14th.
All right, well, I was also wondering, maybe this again, it goes under emergency preparedness, but has the municipality talked about opening up cooling centers and, what are the criteria? Do you have to have so many days of over 30 heat? A lot of people don't have, in this area, do not have air conditioning or air filtration, all that stuff. So has the municipality talked about providing?
I know we haven't talked about it lately, but that falls all under emergency services. And I know Rock Bigaro, our fire chief, is on top of it.
Okay.
If I have talked to him about that lately, no.
Okay. Yeah, and I am asking, whether the municipality can look into this issue on Pinewood Road. And I'm sorry? Okay, okay.
Sorry, that's relative to recycling pickup.
Yeah, it's really, I'm talking about the recycling program. Yeah.
Okay, Tim?
Yeah, just a little further from what Joan is saying about, I don't know that road, so I can't speak to it by name, but if there was a ratepayer that thought that maybe we should look into it, as Kevin, I'm sure, maybe me, where I live, right? Maybe I want a shed. I'm just wondering, is there a forum, or I want my own shed? Is there a forum and an opportunity to make that comment through the business day and say, hey, Michelle, hey, Kevin, can you have a look at this? Because I think there's a better way, or this doesn't work for me.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to answer your question, Tim, we have received many correspondence over the last 2 weeks, and we are filtering them as best and as fast as we can. But this is not the only program that we have going on right now. It is definitely a high priority, but we are working on it, and everyone that has emailed us or called, we are getting back to as quickly as we can.
Yeah, I don't think it wasn't intended to be a critique on how well you're managing the program. I can't even imagine the phone calls and emails. And but I just wonder, is there a mechanism? Is there a process? Just, it's not 311 here, but 311 says Kevin answers 311 here. And it said, hey, I have an issue. So there is a forum and an opportunity to have that discussion.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, as everyone knows, we sent out notices to every ratepayer in the mail. I believe, like you guys all know that we got that in there. And there's a contact number to call. So it does go to Michelle, and Michelle is organizing it all. And yeah, it's a lot on her right now, but that is the best way. You can just call the municipal office as well, and they will direct you to us, and we're going to filter it as best as we can.
And like I mentioned, we have glitches. We knew there'd be glitches, but on the whole, I know I'm quite satisfied with the first day, and I'm just anxious to see in a few months when we get the figures and we can compare. It'll be I think it'll be eye-opening. Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a couple of little glitches down our way on the first day. Nothing too serious. I called into the office and it was taken care of. But I think it's kind of interesting that maybe an illustration that a lot of our information doesn't get too well read at times, because I saw several bunches of recycling out today. And people are not looking at 2 weeks, they're thinking it's weekly, I guess, on Wednesdays. And so I saw some of that. But otherwise, I think it will work out very well. And I hear nothing but people being pleased at having this opportunity to get rid of their recycling easily. And from our perspective, from council's perspective, the fact that we're getting cleaner recycling and I'm not seeing anything now going into the landfill much, that, and as I understand it, if the people picking it up see that the recycling is contaminated in the bins, they don't take it. And so that's a good lesson for people to understand what's recyclable and what isn't, at least here in this municipality, because God knows it's different in different municipalities and different companies doing it. And for people who are not local residents or are seasonal and so forth, to try to compare sometimes our program with what they have at home doesn't compare. And so it takes a little while for everybody to get used to what our program is, and especially because almost everyone that comes from any municipality elsewhere has got a recycling program in place that they're used to and accustomed to. So, but it will work out. Can't expect it to be perfect the first couple of times, and we give I think it's important to give the people collecting this an opportunity and plenty of chance to learn our complicated long road system that we have, and it'll take a little time, and I'm pleased with it so far.
Thank you, Dean. Dave?
I think you skipped Willie.
No, I'll go back to him.
So just on the recycling thing, well, Kevin set me up. I don't know if everybody here knows about it there, but there's an app for Waste Wizard. So I get a text at 7 o'clock the night before notifying me that it's the next day. That helps for me. Okay, well, it worked for me. Also, just going back to the sewage thing, I know we just made a thing to stop sewage coming from outside the municipality, but I was in contact with First Nation Henvey Inlet a couple of weeks ago, and they have nowhere to put their sewage. They're prepared to make some kind of agreement. I don't know what we'd have to discuss, but maybe they could help fund, buy into the lagoons. I don't know if we have the capacity for that or not. It's not a huge area, or not that many population. But maybe if we could have some kind of agreement, I think it's worth talking about it, and they could help with the maintenance cost and maybe the dredging and for future dredging or whatever, depending on what agreement we can get to.
Okay, well, I guess we would have to wait. The ball's in their court. Before they approach us, we can't really do anything. We're not gonna go.
Well,
back.
they already contacted me as
Well,
counselor.
they would have to
Yeah.
contact the municipality and
Well, I spoke
And go
to
to-
Mark and I spoke to Kevin.
okay,
but,
well,
we were waiting for this report to see where we're at first there, and then we can.
well, if they you spoke to Mark and you spoke to Kevin, we'll just leave the ball right there for now and we'll let the staff deal with that.
Well, nothing's
I believe-
officially done right now.
Okay, but it's nice to know though.
Mhm.
Okay, anything else? Brad?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. For those in my area, the recycle program went really well. Thank you very much, guys. Good job on you. Minor complaint, I guess, from a personal standpoint. I had called the office the day before asking about shredded paper. And the answer came back to me, it would be better if shredded paper did not come out into the recycle in a clear plastic bag. Okay, I can understand that. The unfortunate thing is when one puts shredded paper into bins, it tends to fly away. So I spent, probably 15 minutes cleaning up after the truck had left. Now I had them too, but but again, that's the things that will work itself out. I understand all of that, and we can talk about that. The other point that I wanted to make, and this is related, but it's not related. As part of the French River Stewardship Council, we take water samples throughout the upper and lower French. And this is with respect to the Lake Partnership Program from the Ministry of the Environment. I am in need of one sampler, taking samples in, I have to read my writing here, in Wolseley Bay, which is sort of downstream from the lagoons. So if anybody knows anybody who's got a boat and who's maybe got some time and wants to get involved, this is all volunteer. Could you have somebody contact me, please? That would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Caitlin? Okay. Willie?
I have nothing to add at this time.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kevin.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I just would like to add one last thing on a bylaw perspective, putting the other hat on. I just like to remind everybody that as of July 1st, there's no more recycling at our transfer sites. It has to be put at the curb or you come to the landfill site. So from going forward, the 2-bag limit will be in effect. And there is bylaws against you not putting your recycling into the waste. So just would like to throw that reminder out because I know council might get some calls on this one from, bylaw acting on this.
I know we'll get calls. But the recycling, not bins, but containers at the landfill will still be there and available for people to bring their recycling right to the dump site.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the 40-yard bins will still be there for businesses and residents that may miss their pickup. And all the blue bins at our offsites, our waste transfer sites, they're gonna be just converted to waste, as you know. That way, we're not running into the space issues because of our aging bins. I know soon enough, our report is getting put together for, options for our household waste, so that'll be coming up shortly.
Okay, thank you. Pardon me? Yes,
All right, I was at the Minettville bins. Yeah, a couple of days ago, and I noticed that the cardboard was blocked off with somebody had bolted a piece of board across so you could put the cardboard in. Kind of wondering, because that's considered recycling too?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if Public Works would have done that, that would have meant that bin is out of service, which means it's broken.
Oh,
So that
okay.
means we're just down a bin. As you see, some of them are boarded up. We gotta pull them from the sites, but they are breaking quickly.
Okay,
So-
and also I was just wondering, like, we're assuming that the guy driving the GFL truck is checking to see what he's picking up. From what I mean, to tell you the truth, I forgot about it, so the guy just sailed past my place. But I kind of wondered, like, is he actually checking to see whether it's bona fide recycling, or does it go to North Bay and then they tell us whether it's contaminated?
When the guy came to our place, he looked in the bins before he dumped it into the truck. So they are making sure that it's clean because it has to meet certain requirements, or else you get a friendly sticker saying that you didn't comply.
Okay, great. Thank you.
okay. Tim,
A brief one for Brad, you were talking about the shredded paper and such. A couple of months back at Earth Day, we talked to tons and tons of people about why this wasn't gonna work. It was usually what they were coming up to us and saying. And one of them, the paper's gonna blow all over the place and shredded paper will blow and other things. With that little thought there, I went out and I discovered there are a number of products that can enclose the top of your blue bin. One's a net. It's not the hardware store here. There's a hard cover over the top, and there's 2 or 3, I won't call them solutions, but potentially are solutions. And I think I'm using them, so I think that just so you're aware, and they are available at our local hardware store. $10 home hardware certificates now for saying that.
thank you, Tim. Marty, did you want to address the committee? Okay, and I'm just going to stop you. I know you as Marty. Longlad, just for the record. Okay, thank you. Yes, we should.
Thanks for recognizing me. Yeah. Listening to everybody's comments, it sounds like the recycling program's a great success, and it is, and it's something that needs to be done. But there's issues with this recycling shed regarding the application that I and others in the Pinewood area have an issue with. One of them is the consistency of the pickup. The residents along the municipal roads of Greaves and Pinewood are not receiving any driveway pickup. Kevin addressed that by saying that the contractor couldn't turn around or wasn't able to turn around Pinewood. But if you go on Pinewood, if you go on neighboring roads such as Harmony Point Road or Sucker Creek Road, the roads are just as wide, if not smaller than what's on Pinewood. So that I'm curious as to why the contractor says he can't go down Pinewood. Also, it's a municipal road. There should be road standards associated with the maintenance of those roads. And there should be oversight in the contractor. The stakeholding process, I assume you had one. People in Pinewood, excuse me, never found out about the recycling shed until a week prior to this program starting. And the third one, but no one's talked about this one yet, is you're downloading municipal responsibility on the constituents. We're now responsible for the cleanliness and the snow removal in the shed. Whereas a lot of the constituents are elder, won't be able to do it. And this is a municipal asset on municipal property. And so those are issues that I hope are addressed.
Okay, thank you for your comments. They have been registered and we will take a look at them. Thank you. Anything else from anyone? If not, I will call adjournment. I need a mover and a seconder. I got Caitlin and Dave. I was off.